Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. An interesting story in the gold market was Venezuela gold holdings in Bank of England soar on Deutsche Bank deal. So basically, Venezuela has closed out a gold swap with Deutsche Bank, which I'm sure is a whole adventure in and of itself. Any of these, again, Deutsche Bank was fined couple of years ago for manipulating gold and silver. I personally believe that there is a lot of within the context of what the law is designed to facilitate in the markets, a lot of non-compliant things going on with these gold swaps. But we'll leave that aside for today. Maybe dig into that in the future. But what's interesting here, again, they're talking about how Venezuela has been trying to repatriate its gold from the Bank of England. And so far, the Bank of England has said, no, we're not going to give the gold back based on sanctions that have been levied by the U.S. Now, on one hand, certainly it is above my pay grade to dig into what's going on with the Venezuelan government, although it was interesting to see that I believe Trump recognized a new group that is trying to get in power that is opposite of Maduro. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's a rough outline. Trump's now supporting the foreign government. And actually, what caught my eye about these sanctions in the beginning, if you happen to have caught the Magnitsky Act, there was a documentary about that whole situation, which is quite fascinating. We'll not dig into that at the moment. But what's interesting is just the idea that, similar to the way U.S. law has gone here, you can start putting sanctions or laws on anything. If you say that it's illegal to jaywalk, someone jaywalks, now we're going to sanction every, any country that person's from. Again, that's an extreme example, but certainly with things that have been happening with the politics, a lot of sanctions being dished out just about everywhere, and still the idea that based on that, so at least introducing a non-zero probability that country A politicians could get together with country B politicians, put a sanction, and then now you have basically a bank saying we're not returning money. And again, my understanding is the sanctions were made by the U.S., so not even involved in this transaction, which, again, I wouldn't claim to know exactly how this is playing out. I'm guessing there's far more behind the story than I have any idea about. But really, if you're another country, and here's what really in the end I would think matters. If you're another country and you're storing your gold at the Bank of London, Bank of England, do you feel safe there now after watching what just happened? Maybe you're a country that the U.S. doesn't like politically, and they put sanctions on that country, and now all of a sudden, do you not have the ability to repatriate your metal? You're creating a template similar to some of those bank bail-ins where, all right, it's done. All right, maybe in Venezuela doesn't affect one country, but now there's a precedent set which, to me, I would not, and which is why I do not leave metal in one of these bullion banks. I wouldn't do it if I were a government, a corporation, or just a person. So it will be fascinating to see how that plays out. And the last note here, the motivation for paying back the funds from Deutsche Bank swap was not immediately evident, but redeeming the swap would give Venezuela more gold for barter operations with Turkey. So seeing once again that you can put sanctions in place, governments can bully each other and do all sorts of things that I wouldn't personally advise, yet the law of unintended consequences were here. The sanctions placed on Venezuela, and they're going to cryptos and gold. Similar to how years ago when sanctions were placed on Iran, all right, you're pushing people away from the dollar system, and at some point you would think there will be some blowback. But interesting that here now we're talking about gold being used for barter operations with Turkey, another large gold buyer. So all in all, fascinating stuff happening. So hit the darn subscribe button, and I will keep you posted. stuff that you generally don't find in the mainstream. Guess this article is on Reuters, so somewhat in the mainstream, but fascinating things to think about. And I will see you again soon. Thanks.